All right, back and answering more of your questions. Here we go. What was the deal all about with Terminus and the flashback in the first episode of season 5? So I assume you mean the flashback with the termites, where it showed that they were prisoners and were being tortured, and then, you know, later Gareth talks about how they got out and fought back against their attackers. Wow, that question's a can of worms. So a lot of different things, and we also don't know. So I've talked about, like last week, how we think that both Terminus and Grady might have been part of the CRM or in touch with the CRM. So Terminus was one of those things where they were these bad guys. They came and went pretty quickly, and we didn't really feel like we got a full explanation for what they were and what the point in the story was for them. Even though we got backstory, and, you know, Gareth did explain that they were letting people in, and then some bad people came in and took over, and then they were able to fight back and get their land back from the bad people, and then that's when they sort of turned into bad people themselves. If somebody is willing to follow their rules and be part of their organization, then they'll let them in, but otherwise those people who are not willing to do that become food, right? So then we have the fact that this guy who we saw at the beginning, who was really mean and nasty, he's actually the guy we see come out of the train car, and he comes at Glenn and says, "We are the same." And he's something that's symbolically really, really important, but we don't exactly know why. He comes out of, I want to say it's out of the C car. Maybe I'm wrong about, no, I think it's the C car. And he says, "We're the same" to Glenn. Now, C is important. We have the A's, we have the B's, right? C is the cell block that Team Family stayed in at the prison. So it's interesting that he says we're the same, as though they're being equated, even symbolically, as being the same, people from Team Family. And I just wonder, I mean, when this guy showed up, he looked a lot like comic book Negan. And so there was a lot of people, I remember there was a theory that he was Negan, but then he gets killed, you know, so it's like, yeah, no, guys, that wasn't Negan. And then, of course, it wasn't. Jeffrey Dean Morgan was Negan. But I just kind of wonder if he and that whole thing is just another thing that they have not explained to us. And once they do, it'll make a lot more sense. The other thing about that guy is that he has 8s on his face. He has all these tattoos. I always call him Crazy Tattoo Guy. But the tattoos are highly symbolic and are symbolic of things that we see around Beth, too. So I'm just wondering if maybe those people who came in and were torturing the termites at first, either they were part of the CRM, or maybe the way that the termites finally turned things around is some CRM came in and helped them in some way. But the point is, I think the point most obviously that they were trying to make there is that these were bad people, and Team Family, if they make bad decisions, you know, get into some moral gray area, they could end up like that. And then we kind of proceeded to see that in season 5. So it was also kind of a foreshadow of what was going to happen, because Rick was doing things that were really kind of crazy and immoral, and that resulted in Beth getting shot. So I think it's all part of the same symbolism, but in terms of what was actually happening in the story, it's hard to say. Because, like, even remember in season 4, in the finale, when they're trying to get away from the termites before they end up in the A car, there's that room full of candles and words written on the floor. And that is, yeah, you could just say, okay, it's part of the craziness of the termites, and you could explain it as in it's some sort of shrine or vigil to the people they lost, you know, and there's words written on the wall about never again, and, you know, they're going to be the butchers and not the cattle, and all of that does explain it, but at the same time, there is so much detail put into that room that I feel like that's not explanation enough, and there's more going on there than we are understanding. So, yeah, the answer really is that we don't know. And I do think that there's more there going on, but they haven't explained it to us in its entirety yet. But I think they will at some point. So I am very interested to see what the explanation is. But overall, the very vague, overarching explanation, I think, is the CRM. I think they had their hands in everything that we saw from season 4 on. I think that as soon as Gimple took over, he already had the CRM storyline and started implementing it just in really subtle ways in the beginning. Okay, so I think it'll have everything to do with that. But I really can't answer your question any better than that with what we have right now. So hopefully soon. Did Herschel Jr. ever ask his mom or anybody from TF about the missing 17 days that involved his Aunt Beth? Does he even know what happened? So this is kind of the same as what I answered yesterday, and that is just that we don't know. I think there's a good chance that he's been told some of these things, but unless we actually see them telling him on screen, we can't be sure. And it's hard to say how much Maggie would have talked about her family. Again, she had the pictures at Hilltop, but she also left when Herschel was quite young. And then they got burnt down. So I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe she wouldn't have talked to him about them. But the only way we can know that is if they discuss it at some point in the show. So I honestly don't know. When Beth is revealed alive and finally returned to our screen and our hearts, will she still sing? Since EK still does, would that apply for Beth? So I'm of two minds about this. I mean, the obvious thing is yes, that she will, because that's the whole point. And especially after seeing this last episode with Jadis, where they really emphasized that she let go of her art when she went down the dark path, you would think that it would be the opposite for Beth. However, I can also see, and I think it would be a really cool arc if maybe she hasn't sung in a while, if she kind of let that go or is just repressing it in a way because she's away from them, and so it's something that she kind of stopped doing. And then, I mean, how sweet would it be if when she sees Daryl again, she sings for the first time since she last saw him or since she got shot, and so she sings for him. You know, something like that I can see being the case too, and it would just... we would all be puddles of goo on the floor at that point. You know, let's face it, we would. But either way, I think we will see her sing in the show again because they made that such a big theme around her, about her singing and I Still Sing and the music box. And there's no way we're not going to hear her sing again. So yeah, I do think it will apply to her in some way, shape, or form in the future. I met Pollyanna when season 9 aired and I loved her. She's awesome and super funny. Yeah, she seems like she's super cool. Jadis is an interesting character, and so they did the cast diaries after this episode, and they did have Pollyanna talking on there a little bit, and it's kind of interesting what she said. She said Jadis is a very grounding character to play because she's so like serious and kind of grave in the way she speaks or the way she holds herself, and Pollyanna said something about herself about, I'm not going to remember what it was, but something about how she's really hyperactive monkey sort of person, so it's very grounding for her to play Jadis. I just thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, Pollyanna seems like she's super cool and super down to earth, and I honestly, I think she's an excellent actress, and she's obviously someone he's got a lot of confidence, not only because she plays the character so well, but this is a character in which they intentionally make her kind of ugly. And not that Pollyanna is ugly at all, but they go out of their way to make her look like not feminine and to look like a villain, and that clearly doesn't bother Pollyanna at all, and more power to her. I love that about her. So anyway, I'm gonna miss Jadis as a character. She was definitely an interesting one. All right, if Maggie didn't leave Hilltop with Georgie and stuck around, do you think she would have gotten Yumiko's arc with a sibling reunion at the Commonwealth? Honestly, it doesn't feel that strong with her because we as an audience don't know her brother's existence until she mentioned him just before arriving at the Commonwealth. With the Green Sisters, it would have been much more impactful as we already knew the two of them and had connections with the both of them, and Beth being revealed alive for that arc. That would have been amazing. What do you think? I'd say your name, but no one knows what it is. I don't mind telling you my name. My name is Liesel, and it's a little bit different. It's not Lisa, it's Liesel, but I get called Leslie and Lisa all the time. So there was a lot of speculation about Beth showing up at Commonwealth, either through the sibling arc that you mentioned here, or also through Elodie, which in the books was Michonne's long-lost daughter. And they did both of those, but they remixed them, turned them on their head. I'm kind of two minds about it. On the one hand, I could argue that maybe they left that open to possibly do Beth's return there, but then once they got there, they also knew that it was going to be too soon and they wouldn't be doing it then, so they just gave it to other character arcs and pushed hers back for the spin-offs. But I don't know. At its core, I'm not even sure I believe that's true, even though I think things did take longer than they were supposed to and did have to get pushed back a little bit. I think they always knew that she would be coming through the CRM, and unless it was a whole thing where they were going to bring the CRM in during the Commonwealth arc, but that seems really complicated. And from what we have heard Gimple say, it seems like they wanted to get through all the comic book material before they moved on to the non-comic book material, which, obviously Beth and Daryl are non-comic book material, but so is the CRM. The CRM isn't in the comic book. So overall, I would say I don't know that I think they were ever planning to do that, but again, we don't know for sure. So possibly, and I always say I hope that someday Gimple comes out and gives us a whole start to finish, walk us through it, exactly what happened, exactly what were you thinking, exactly what does every symbol mean, because I would be glued to that for days, but I don't know if he'll ever do that for us. We can hope, and I'm just enough of a geek to look forward to something like that. So anyway, again, it's just something we don't know. We can only conjecture about, but it definitely would have been interesting, and I agree that it would have been amazing. But I mean, Maggie's still alive, and they can still have a really amazing siblings reunion, and it'll just be in a different time and a different place. So will we ever see Heath again? AK confirmed that Jadis took him and then traded him to the CRM. Do you think he's an A or a B? Heath is an interesting one. I think he could go either way because he was definitely less of an A than Rick's group when we saw him. But, when he was with Tara, he was being pretty rebellious in his nature. I think the main reason we haven't seen him again yet is probably a logistics thing with the actor, because he got pretty famous after he was on The Walking Dead, and they probably don't have a whole lot of his time right now. I kind of half wonder, depending on his schedule, if they'll do something like they did with Morales, where I do think they'll bring him back because we know that Gimple doesn't leave loose ends, and they're going to want us to know what happened to him. So they might just bring him back for 5 minutes just to kill him off if the actor doesn't want to stay extensively, working in the TWD universe. On the other hand, you could also argue that maybe the reason we haven't seen him yet is because he's going to be a big part of Beth's arc. And so they were never planning to bring him back until then, and maybe they've worked out the schedule. I mean, again, we just don't know. So I do think that we will see him again for some period of time. It might be very small or it might be very big. That's what I don't know, is how they're going to bring him back and how big a role he'll play. But Gimple, if they brought Morales back after 8 seasons just to kill him off so that we would know what happened to that character, they're going to do that with Heath as well. And it will be interesting to see how Heath is after all these years, because he's been inside the CRM for a long time. So did he become a B, and is he living in the city now because he did his time and won his citizenship, or is he going to be more of a rebel running around with Beth hopefully and trying to bring the place down? We honestly don't know, and I could see it going either way with him. I could see him starting out one way and changing, but I don't know. I do, though. That's about the one concrete thing I can say, is I do think we'll see him again. So what happens to TD once Beth returns? Will you still analyze the episode of whatever show is airing? Who will be our next mascot model person after Beth whenever she's revealed alive? She's been our person for such a long time now, it'll definitely be a big change. I think she'll still be our person. There are plenty of people who love Rochon and wanted them to get together long before they did, and they still love them and still watch them and still follow them. Yes, I will continue to analyze the symbolism and see where it's going, because it's something that I love to do and I love to geek out about. But once Beth returns, we've got a lot of story to tell here. We've got not only the romance between her and Daryl, which is obviously going to be the biggest thing, but we have the whole CRM war. And yeah, I'm going to have a front row seat for that. I'm here for it, So I don't know that, at least for me, for a lot of us, there will be a different mascot. It'll just be the characters that we've always known and loved who are still alive. So it's Rick, Michonne, Daryl, Beth, Carol, Ezekiel, Maggie, and even a lot of the side characters I've really come to love, like Aaron and Jerry and even Father Gabriel and Eugene. They're just really lovable, and so I'm here for their story. Even after Beth returns, it's not going to really change anything for me. Yeah. All right, this is the final one I have for this week as of the recording of this. Do you think Beth will have a short-term romance partner like Daryl had with Leah? Yes, but she may have already had it. So I do think that it's important that she have this in order to line up with all of the other characters. But keep in mind, she already did have 2 boyfriends on the show. There was Jimmy first, and then there was Zach. So they may count as her short-term relationships. Or they may tell us that she did have another short-term relationship like Daryl did with Leah during the time when she and Daryl were not in the same place. So I could see it either way, but I think there will be somebody. Well, even if there's not, even if she really doesn't have anyone in her backstory that we see, then it will just be that they were counting Zach and Jimmy as her short-term romances, and I can see it going either way. So either way, I think that she will fit that same pattern, but I just don't know if there's going to be someone else that we haven't met yet or not. I don't know. Like, I know nobody likes to think of it this way because we like to think of Beth and Daryl as just being there for each other and not having anyone else. But at the same time, Beth was someone who was always in a relationship. She's somebody who connects very, very easily with other people. And I have a really hard time believing that she would be completely alone for 10 years and not in a relationship. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that she's going to fall in love with someone or that anybody other than Daryl is going to be her soulmate, but I can see her having a relationship and it would not be out of character for her. Anyway, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But like I said, I can see it going either way. I can see them showing us that she has one or just deciding that Jimmy and Zach were her short-term relationships and not doing another one. I think either one would work. So yeah, like I said, that is what I have so far. But the finale, by the time that I post this, the finale will be coming at us super fast. And I'm super excited and super here for it. So we will just have to see what Sunday brings us. And I will be back to analyze the crap out of it when it does. All right, see you guys soon.